interviews. And finally, culture, right? There's one particular interview, which is, do you have the cultural fit to actually join a team and be successful there? It's much more about how happy we will be working with us. It's not only about if you have the right, let's say, DevOps mindset or whatever, but it's like, wow, I mean, we have a certain environment with a certain culture, and we have to make sure that we be successful there. So these are these 5 interviews that we have now in order to hire product engineers at Facebook. And then the next change was probably the most critical change that was made, and obviously there's a cat picture, right? Which was, okay, we don't have an operations team anymore, right? So who's on call? So that was the face of the engineers, and he told them, everyone is on call, right? So if no one is on call, everyone is on call. And that includes not only the PEs, but the software engineers. And that means the managers, and that means the directors, and that means everyone is on call, right? Everyone is sharing the pain. Whenever something goes wrong, right, everyone must understand that this must be fixed, right? Coincidentally or not, after this was made, the amount of critical steps has potentially decreased, right? Not true, but anyway, you might ask me, okay, but that didn't actually make things go slower because now people are afraid to make changes because it will break and you need to fix it. Surprisingly, no. Surprisingly, things started to go even faster, right? After the initial shock, where some people even left the company, people started to understand that, okay, this thing about reliability and availability is important, right? We need to make sure that actually the code works. And this has been like this until now, and quite frankly, it's, the lack of a bad word, I would say it's fair, right? Whenever someone does something, he understands that he'll be the one responsible for fixing it, right? No matter if he's a software engineer or a production engineer, no matter if he's like a very senior engineer or someone who just graduated from bootcamp, you'll be on call, right? And you need to figure out what to do to fix this problem. Needless to say, as I mentioned, I mean, it was not as easy as I'm explaining here, right? There was a lot of criticism, people telling that, oh, my whole team will disband, we will not accept that. But, I mean, it was a part of the process, right? We need to go through that to make sure that everyone understood that we are in a new model. And another thing that is very important is that we cannot see a way to scale out operations if we don't do that, right? Just imagine like thousands of engineers pushing code, creating new systems, creating new services. How do you expect that an individual team, right, will be able to cope with this progress and will be able to keep learning how these things work and will be able to fix it? It simply doesn't work like that. So there's something that we need to do anyway. The third part, which is very important actually, there's a whole talk about this, to be honest, it's about blameless postmortems, right, which you call SAV review. SAV stands for site event, which is whenever something breaks, as you can imagine, we have a SAV, right? SAVs have different categories, right? They range from 1 to 4, where 1 means the site is down, to 4 means we might be losing some packets between Sweden and New York City, right? Nothing is really broken, no one is noticing, but, well, that can scale very quickly if no one thinks so, right? So we call it SAV review, right? Important things about the SAV review, or SAV review in a nutshell, right? We have 2 main SAV reviews. One is hosted in London, the other one is hosted in Mumbai. And they cover the SAVs that happened in the week before the meeting that were, let's say, critical or that had some risk for the website, right? Not necessarily something that broke for the user, but something that might break if no one did anything. One important thing is that there are some, let's say, some forbidden questions, right? So forbidden questions are something like, how can you make sure that this will never happen again? we never ask this question. Like, it's like, if you ask this question, you're out, right? Don't do that. The question that we always make is, how can we make sure that whenever this happens again, it will not have the same impact, right? Because it will happen again. I mean, we are trying to be a little more realistic about the approach and say, hey, I mean, yeah, that guy deleted data, right? And that caused X. How can we make sure that whenever someone deletes data again, this will not happen? So we go over that every single week. It's a very important meeting to us. I mean, in the US, some very senior leadership attends the meeting, and because they understand this is really valuable. And the same happens here in London, and we go over that. And the good thing is that everyone that goes there understands that, I mean, they will be welcome there, right? No one will be pointing fingers, no one will be blaming them, no one will be asking, why did you do this, right? It's like, well, I mean, we believe in good intents, right? We believe that people wanted to move forward, and that's why we did it. Something went wrong, right? Let's figure out how we can make sure that this will not go wrong when you do it again, or whenever someone else does it again. That doesn't mean that someone can just keep doing things wrong over and over again, right? That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that we understand that if we have this open and respectful approach, right, people will feel comfortable to keep moving fast, right, which is something that, as I said, is one model that we have, and we keep that this is very important to us. But if people are scared to make changes because they might break the site, right? Obviously, they start to slow down, and that's not what we want. So the last thing I want to talk about is about the engagement model that we have, right? Obviously, this is a 30,000 feet view of the engagement model that we have. At Facebook, we have basically SWEs and PEs, stands for software engineers and production engineers, and not every team has production engineers, right? Simply because for some teams it doesn't make any sense. Teams that work very level on the stack, or front-end teams, or people that work on, let's say, JavaScript frameworks, right? It doesn't, I mean, I can see some ways that it could work, right? But most of the time they don't need peace, right? They don't need support from someone to say how we make sure that this scales out, because, well, it either runs on a desktop or runs on a very specific set of machines, or actually leverages on infrastructure that is already managed by someone else. So in these cases, we have no SWEs working with them. Sorry, no PEs working with them. The second engagement model that we have is PE-only teams. Yeah, that exists. Particularly, and that happens actually in two opposite sides of this range, right? So we have some very, let's say, high-level PE teams that manage, how can I say that? They are, let's say, the last line of defense whenever something breaks in some unexpected way, and no one is able to figure out what's wrong, right? So we have some teams that are usually composed by very senior engineers that work on, let's say, a more broader spectrum, right? They kind of bring different skill sets to the table and understand about different things, and they're like, okay, this is happening because it's more like a butterfly flaps his wings in the Pacific, right? And then a hurricane happens somewhere else. So it's more like it's people that can make this relationship and understand what is wrong, right? The other side of the spectrum is PEs that work on very specific stuff related to data center infrastructure management, building management systems, and network, right? So we have a set of PEs that are very specific to this problem domain, and they work focused on that. The third model that we have is that when SWEs and PEs work in the same team, but they don't share the same roadmap. One example is teams that, let's say that team that is building a certain new system, right? And we need someone to build specific provisioning, image provisioning service for this system, right? Then PEs kick in and say, okay, this is the kind of thing that I know how to do. This is the kind of thing that I'm an expert, but not necessarily I need to share the roadmap with you. I can build my own system, right? And we'll make sure that these things will work together in the end. So they, as I said, they share on-call. they share their roadmaps in the sense that one talks to the other and say, hey, this is the way I'm trying to do this. What do you think? But they work on different sets of the stack. And the last model is whenever we have swings and Ps working together on the same roadmap, right? In these cases, let's say Ps have a much more direct approach, and usually their goals are much shorter than the swings, right? But they basically work together. They're working together on the same code base and delivering the same code, but it's more like, okay, I see a pattern here that if we keep doing that, we will not be able to scale by 10x whenever this system hits production. So let's make sure that we fix that before that happens. But as I said, I mean, they're actually pushing code and making sure that this works. It's not a consultancy, right? They're not there to just propose things to the team. They're there to actually make the changes. So key takeaways, right? So the things that I like you to think about. So hiring for the right skill sets and attitude will save you time in the long run, right? It's something that, as I said, I mean, we have this very, I would say, slightly complex recruiting and hiring model. It might sound worrisome, and it is, right? It takes a lot of time. Just imagine going through all these interviews for everyone that is hired. But actually, whenever we find this person that actually fits what we need, I mean, we are sure that this will work, right? We are sure that this relationship will work in the long run. So for definitely DevOps is a cultural shift, but we avoid naming a team with that name, right? So I mean, we understand that sometimes this kind of excludes people and might feel that, well, there's the DevOps team, I'm not DevOps, so I don't care, right? And they try to make sure that everyone understands, hey, I mean, DevOps for us is a cultural shift. Everyone works like that, right? And we should follow this pattern, right? But we don't have an exclusive team that does that. For us, everyone is doing DevOps at the same time. The third thing is that engineers should be accountable for the software they deliver, right? If you build it, you own it, right? And by own it, I mean, if it breaks, someone needs to fix it, right? And you'll be the one fixing it. One interesting thing is that we have this peer review approach, right? Whenever someone pushes diff, someone else needs to review it. And you might ask me, okay, but let's say that someone who actually pushed the code is on PTO or whatever. Well, whoever reviewed the code will be on call, right? And say, hey, I mean, you need to fix that because you gave me a thumbs up to push this into production, so come here and fix this thing. And one more thing, one last thing that I hear a lot of times, and it's quite important, right? Well, some people believe that we only can do this because we are Facebook, right? Don't listen to these people, right? As I said, I mean, I've worked in a large retailer where basically I was responsible for making all these changes there, right? And it's doable, right? You can do it. No matter if you're in a big company or a small company. I've worked in small companies as well. And you can do it if you want, right? It's not Facebook's exclusive thing, right? You can do it, I'll argue, mostly everywhere, right? And it definitely helps you to have a good relationship and engagement between the software engineers and your DevOps team, production engineers, SRE, no matter how called, right? I mean, it doesn't matter that much, but it's definitely doable if you put some effort in doing that. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.